What is up, Chowder fam? Today we are going to be talking about the hit band, Weezer. Holy fuck, Weezer, get out of the way. I'm trying to bowl. Fuck Weezer. But today we are going to be reviewing all 20 of Weezer's albums. And I'm going to share my thoughts and opinions on whether or not they are good or bad. And let me tell you, there are some fucking bad ones. So, without further ado, let's get right into the video. You got it?
What is up? Chowder here from the future. If you want to skip to the tier list portion of the video, it will be at this timestamp. Let's start with their first album, the Blue Album, which is most likely their most recognizable album. Almost everybody has seen the album cover for it. The Blue Album was released in 1994. I have already heard this entire album prior to this recording, and even own it on vinyl, and it contains some of the first songs I've ever taken a liking to. I don't think this album has any misses, but there definitely are some that aren't as good as others. The better songs on the album are definitely Buddy Holly, Say It Ain't So, and Sweater's Song, also known as Undone, which, funny enough, all three of them at one point were all meme songs. And to go back to Say It Ain't So, Say It Ain't So is easily one of my top 5 Weezer songs, and one of the first songs I've ever learned on bass, and definitely my favorite to play on bass also. However, like I said, there are some songs that aren't that good on this record, such as No One Else and Only in Dreams. This record does hold a place in my heart due to it being one of the first records I got into, but like I said, there definitely are some songs that don't hold up on this, especially Only in Dreams, because it is a 7 to 8 minute song, and I ain't got the fucking time for that, and it shouldn't be that long. At least on Spotify it's that long. I don't think it is on the vinyl. Now we move on to Weezer's second album, Pinkerton, released in 1996. I haven't listened to any songs off of this record prior to making this video, so this record is entirely fresh to me, besides the infamous Pink Triangle. However, I've never actually listened to it, but I've heard friends who have listened to Weezer talk about it, but mostly about the cringy lyrical content. My assumed opinion of it before listening was that this album was going to fucking suck, and to my surprise, I was right. This album is a certified miss. There are some points where it is definitely better than others, but that happens very rarely. The very few high points that I do want to talk about are small instrumental parts I enjoyed, but were quickly ruined by the rest of the song. Some examples are the first 11 to 13 seconds of Falling For You, and the first 15 to 17 seconds of Across the Sea. The best song on the album is definitely Pink Triangle, which is why it's the only song I somewhat knew prior to listening. Even though it might be the best, that also isn't saying much because the album as a whole fucking sucks. However, a highlight I had to this album was that Rivers, the lead singer, unironically used the term "holy moly" as a lyric. Easily one of the worst Weezer records, and one of the worst records I've ever had the chances of listening to. Now, we move on from that absolute fucking dumpster fire that is Pinkerton, and we talk about Weezer's third album, the Green Album, released in 2001, a solid 5 years from their last album, which will be their longest break in between albums. I'd say this is a solid comeback and a great step in the right direction for the band. I'd say that at the time, this would be considered their best, which is a pretty based opinion. The album starts out with 4 solid and strong tracks, which is Don't Let Go, Photograph, Hashpipe, and the classic Weezer song, Island in the Sun. As some people might say, hip, hip. The opening track, Don't Let Go, is probably one of Weezer's best opening parts with the little drum part before everything kicks in. We now move on to Weezer's fourth studio album, Maladroit, which was released in 2002. Much like Pinkerton, I knew next to nothing about this album, besides the second song on it, called Dope Notes, which I haven't listened to in a few years. Now that I've listened to this record, I can safely say that this is one of their best at the moment, competing with the Green Album. I don't have much to say on the lyrics for this record, but let me tell ya, the instrumentals for this record are so fucking good, it's actually unbelievable. If I could get my hands on an instrumental version of this album, I'd be so happy. Let's start with the songs on this album that aren't as good as the others, which are the closing three songs in order. They are Possibilities, Love Explosion, and December. They aren't necessarily bad, but they aren't as good as the other songs on this record. Now let's talk about all of the positives on this record. I know I've already mentioned the main thing, which is the instrumentals. Some prime examples for amazing instrumentals are Slob and Burnt Jam. Upon revisiting Dope Nose, I can see why I enjoyed it a few years back, and it is such a good Weezer song. I think the best song on Maladroit is easily Slob, and I think the worst song on this record is December. This album really took me by surprise, and it is so astonishingly good that it genuinely took me aback. It is safe to say that the 5-year gap between Pinkerton and the Green Album was very beneficial for them because it caused them to release two of their best albums back to back. Now we move on to Weezer's fifth album, Make Believe, which was released in 2005. Now, before recording, I've only listened to 3 songs off of this record: Beverly Hills, We're All on Drugs, and Perfect Situation. If I'm gonna be honest though, after listening to this album is mid. It's not bad, but it's not good either. It's a perfect middle ground, which sucks because the last 2 albums before this were fucking bangers. And it makes me a little worried for their 6th album, the Red Album. Beverly Hills, the song Beverly Hills on this album is probably the worst on the record. And I find that so astonishing because it is one of their more popular songs. It's so fucking obnoxious, I can't wrap my goddamn head around it because the song just repeats, Beverly Hills, that's where I want to be. So fucking annoying. I don't understand the fucking appeal for it. However, there are a couple of songs on the record that do stand out, such as This Is Such a Pity, and easily my favorite Weezer song, Perfect Situation. It's genuinely sad that this song is on this record due to how good it is in comparison to literally every other song on this record. Like I said, this album isn't bad, but it isn't good. Fuck the song Beverly Hills, and to all the bitches who think this song is even somewhat good, fuck off and get better taste. We move on to album number 6, The Red Album. Released in 2008, a 3-year gap from the mid-album that is Make Believe. Prior to this, I only knew Pork and Beans and Troublemaker, which are both kinda mid, but Pork and Beans is just slightly better. And prior to this, I thought there was only one version of this album, but to my surprise, I guess there is 3. Who could have known? One has 10 songs, which is the original version. One has 14, and then there's a third one that has 15 songs, but is missing Pork and Beans for some fucking reason, which is easily the best song on the entire record. So today, we are only talking about the original version of this record. The first and third songs on this record are the 2 I already mentioned, that being Troublemaker and Pork and Beans. However, in the middle of those 2 songs, there is a song called The Greatest Man That Ever Lived, which is so fucking mid. It is unbelievable. It's quite funny that the Green Album's first 3 songs just grab you and drag you in, but the first 3 songs for this record are also different and give you such mixed vibes about the journey ahead of you. I think the worst songs on this record are Everybody Get Dangerous, Thought I Knew, and Automatic. I don't even think it's fucking River singing and Thought I Knew, or else bro's using voice changer and it doesn't even sound good. And the same thing with Automatic, that you can hear bits and pieces that you can tell it's Rivers, and it's just him doing some goofy ass, annoying ass voice, and I just don't get it, and it doesn't work at all. Something I do have to give this album props for is the closer, The Angel and the One. It's nice that they got the closer right for this, but it sucks that right before it, Automatic plays, almost ruining the entire mood. Heart Songs was pretty good too, and I enjoyed the lyrics quite a bit, talking about Rivers' influence in the start of the band all the way up to where they are in this moment, and talking about how it's nice knowing that the band has become an influence for newer and up-and-coming bands. Overall, this album isn't good, but it does still have some high points. Now we move on to numero 7,
What the dog do?
Ratitude, released in 2009. Like quite a bit of the other Weezer albums, I only knew at least one song for this record, and it's the intro. It's the intro song. If you're wondering if I want to, I want to. For this video, I want to clarify that I will be listening to the regular version of this album and not the deluxe, as I don't think I have the patience to listen to the deluxe version. After listening to this album, I can safely say that there are at least a couple of bangers on here, such as the first song on this record, which is If You're Wondering If I Want You To, I Want You To, and then also Put Me Back Together. Both songs are fairly good and the best on this album. However, with this being a Weezer album, there is some cringe, such as the song I'm Your Daddy. During the chorus, it says, "You are my baby tonight, and I am your daddy," which is fucking cringe and laughable. But however, I do have to admit, it is still a pretty catchy song. A couple of other songs I disliked are Love Is the Answer and Can't Stop Partying, easily the lowest parts of this record. I think the song Let It All Hang Out is a goofy ass name, and let me tell ya, I love letting it just all hang out, especially when I get home from work, if you know what I mean. The song is also fairly catchy, and the same as the two songs following it and closing out the album, which are In the Mall and I Don't Want to Let You Go. The main riff for In the Mall is pretty good, and the chorus is enjoyable. And then the last song on the record, I Don't Want to Let You Go, is a slower and more of a sadder song, but I think it works very well as a closer. Overall, this album is pretty good, but the songs that weren't that good, I would never play for anybody or even put the pressure on them to go and listen to it. Now, we move on to album number 8, Death to False Metal, released in 2010. This is their first album in their discography, and I knew absolutely nothing about it, and let me tell you, this album really isn't that good. I never heard anyone talk about it, not even on Weezer fan pages. Nothing. It was time to break my Death to False Metal virginity. This album consisted of previously unreleased Weezer tracks, and not gonna lie, a majority of the songs should have stayed that way. First, let's talk about The Bad, which is a majority of the album. A majority of the songs on this album's lyrics suck, the instrumentals suck, and they are just overall fucking annoying. Examples of the worst songs on this album are Everyone, I'm a Robot, and Odd Couple. They have no redeeming qualities about them. However, with songs like Trampoline and Autopilot, they at least have the instrumentals going for them. Blowing My Stack and Unbreak My Heart are probably the better songs on this record. This album isn't anything special, and I'm glad there's still some positives that came out of this album, even though there's a lot of low points and mid points. Now we talk about the second Weezer album I've never heard anything about prior to this. Their 9th studio album, Hurley, released in 2010. I don't hear many Weezer fans talk about this album either, but it's just surprising because the dude on the album cover is one hunk of a man, an absolute fucking baddie. Bro's fucking hot. And now it's time to give away my Hurley virginity. I hope the dude on the album cover enjoys taking it. For this listen, I was forced to listen to the deluxe version of this album because that's all that's on Spotify. I want to get a few negatives out of the way first. The first negative I want to talk about is Where's My Sex? This song is the lowest point on the record, and it honestly isn't even close. Where's My Sex opens up with the lines, "My mom had my sex. She knitted it with her hands. Sex making is a family tradition." What the actual fuck was going on in River's head when writing this? Bro definitely was not cooking. Easily one of the worst songs in their entire discography. The follow-up song, Runaway, wasn't good either, which sucks because the song before these two was really good. Unspoken is easily the best song on this record, and genuinely one that I will add to a playlist. The first 4 songs on this record were pretty good, peaking at Unspoken and then taking a drastic dip in quality. After those 2 bad songs, the album's just kinda meh, besides the instrumentals for All My Friends or Insects. They were cooking with that song, and I did greatly appreciate the cover of Viva La Vida by Coldplay. Overall, not a bad album. Unspoken is definitely an underrated gem. Now we move on to number 10. We are now halfway through Weezer's albums, and we are at Everything Will Be Alright in the End, released in 2014, a whole 4 years since Hurley. Prior to this, I knew the songs Back to the Shack and Go Away. Go Away is easily one of my favorite Weezer songs, and one of the first songs I learned on guitar. This song holds some memories from when I first started playing guitar and being one of the first songs I ever played in a band setting. This is it. I think I have actually found it. The best Weezer album, the holy grail of Weezer. I seriously thought going into this video that the Green Album was going to be the best one, and then I listened to Maladroit, and I thought of it as a suitable contender for the #1 spot. But let me tell ya, I was fucking wrong. This is the Weezer album. First we open with Ain't Got Nobody with the opening little segment of the song giving us the album title. It's genuinely really good. It's genuinely a really good opening song and got me excited for what's to come. Next, we get the song previously mentioned, Back to the Shack, which I think is a teaser for the fact that Weezer was fucking cooking when they made this album. The next song I want to talk about, though, on this album is The British Are Coming. Before listening to this, a friend of mine, who will go unnamed, fuck you, Aiden, told me about this song, and I was pretty hyped, because God do I hate the British. This song is a reminder that the British got what they fucking deserved during the American Revolution. I cannot tell you how happy I am that we decided to go to war with, at the time, one of the biggest countries out there, one of the strongest countries out there, and whooped their fucking ass to get our own freedom. Fuck the British. I am so glad that the fucking Queen died. I was so ecstatic about it. Thank the Lord. And then after The British Are Coming, we get the song Da Vinci. Almost said it wrong. Because every single time I see this dude's name, all I can think about are the twins who said his name wrong and became a meme for it, saying Da Vinci.
Who painted the Mona Lisa? Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
Da Vinci?
Lastly, I want to talk about the closing 3 songs. These songs are amazing and perfect. These 3 songs deserve a chef's kiss. Weezer not only gave us a banger opener, but gave us a banger outro too. 2 out of the 3 songs are just pure instrumental, but it's so good, I cannot express how good they are. It starts with The Wasteland, which is just pure instrumental to drag you into the outro for this record. And next it is Anonymous, which the instrumentals are good for this song, and the vocals are good leading into the final track for this record, Return to, I don't know how to pronounce this fucking word, Ithaka, I think. And this song is also a pure instrumental song, which closes out the album, and it works so fucking well. Actually superb. So fucking good. This record took me by surprise, and I will happily say that I will be going out of my way to buy this record on vinyl. This is the perfect Weezer album. We move on to album number 11, the Weezer White Album, released just 2 years after Everything Will Be Alright in the End. For this record, I will be listening to the deluxe version due to I Love the USA being on the deluxe version. Prior to this, I only knew 5 of the original songs, and 3 of which are the opening 3 songs, California Kids, Wind in Our Sail, and Thank God for Girls. California Kids is also easily one of my favorite Weezer songs, and this album starts off strong with this one, and is followed up by 2 more bangers. Weezer is surprisingly good at having the first 3 songs be good, and allowing them to drag you in and not lose any momentum during the first 3 tracks. I also knew 2 of the deluxe songs before this recording, I Love the USA and Friend of a Friend, which I will talk about later on after I talk about the original 10 on this album. The other 2 songs that I knew before listening to on this record was King of the World and Do You Want to Get High, which are both bangers, and it's nice that they also happen back to back. Between the opening 3 songs and the 2 songs I just mentioned, there is 1 song I haven't heard before, and that song is Girl, We Got a Good Thing. I enjoyed listening to it. It's a fun track, making the first 6 songs on this record really strong. Next is the rest of the original songs that I haven't heard before, which are pretty good songs upon first listening. Jacked Up had an enjoyable piano part that coincidentally enough resembles the piano part for the song Bad Boys, aka the theme song for the show Cops. Which is so fucking weird, being able to compare a Weezer song to the theme song for the show Cops. I also had my friend Dylan listen to both of them back to back, and he also agrees that they do sound similar, so I am not the only one. The final song on this record, Endless Bummer, I think is the lowest point on both the original version and the deluxe version of this album. However, the lyric Kumbaya makes me violent is a pretty relatable lyric, and definitely in Weezer's top 3 lines in their career, because it also makes me violent too. Now we talk about the deluxe songs. I Love the USA is definitely a certified banger, and I personally think it should be the United States' new national anthem, not those garbage ass options YouTuber Slow Hispanic gave for his 4th of July video. Someone isn't a true red-blooded American like I am. This song embodies the red, white, and blue, and what it means to be an absolute true patriot. The only thing in this world that I support is the red, white, and blue, and absolutely nothing else. Because I, Actually Chowder, I almost said my real name, I, Actually Chowder, am a true red-blooded American, unlike Slow Hispanic, who thinks that the new U.S. national anthem should, for some fucking reason, be the American Dad theme song, which is a garbage-ass fucking choice. Sorry, I got a little caught up in the moment. But after I Love the USA, the next song that I knew for the deluxe songs is A Friend of a Friend, which is also a good song, and I'm glad I went back and listened to it. The final song in the deluxe version isn't all that good compared to the songs before it, but it's better than Endless Bummer in my opinion. This album is good and definitely one of Weezer's best. I find it strange that Weezer took a 5-year break between the garbage album that is fucking Pinkerton and then make a comeback with the Green Album and release 2 bangers back to back, and then released a bunch of mid and then took a 4-year break to release 2 more bangers back to back, and one of them being the perfect Weezer album. After the White Album, we move on to Pacific Daydream, released just 1 year after the White Album, and the first Weezer album to come out after me finding them. I remember being a newcomer to the Weezer community, me in 10th grade. During this time, I was listening to a lot of pop punk and metal, and not very much popular music. However, the song Feels Like Summer came out, and I absolutely fucking adored it. Even though, strangely enough, it was almost the opposite of what I was listening to at the time. Still, to this day, my number one Weezer song, and I still go back to this day and jam out to this song. Easily the strongest on the record. The record opens up with the song Mexican Fender, which is a really solid song and a nice way to open up the album. After that, the song Beach Boys play, and I absolutely enjoy the bass line for this song, and I love how it's the main instrument for it. It feels really nice. Overall, a banger. Beach Boys is then followed up by Feels Like Summer, which is then followed up by Happy Hour. The song is also bass-led, which, like I've mentioned, I really enjoy. This song is also a bop, just like the 3 songs before it. I really love the approach for the first 4 songs on this record, and the fact that these songs are a new feel for the band, and I think the band was cooking when they were creating these. They are all super catchy, and I love the instrumentals for them, even with them being a bit more poppier. Weekend Woman is the 5th song on this record, and also a banger, but not as strong as the first 4. They were cooking with these bass lines though, because this song's bass line is also fucking good. Before listening to this record, I barely knew the second half of it, and now that I've given the second half a clear listen, I think the first 3 songs on the second half are decent, those being QB Blitz, Sweet Mary, and Get Right. They're pretty mid and both touch and definitely do not touch or compete with the first 5 songs prior to them. But however, they still aren't inherently bad, unlike the last 2 songs that we are going to talk about, which are god awful and fucking suck. They're so fucking annoying that it's as bad as the songs from Pinkerton, which sucks, because the first half of this album is so good and holds up so well to this day, only to drop off so far by the time you reach the end of the album. If the final 2 songs weren't on this record, it would definitely be pretty high up for me, but even with those 2 songs, the album is still good in my opinion. I don't get why this album gets so much hate by the Weezer fanbase, but I absolutely treasure this album and wish I can go back to the days where I heard the first 5 songs and for the first time and had them on repeat. Especially Feels Like Summer. After that, we move on and arrive at the Weezer Teal Album, released in 2019. Their 13th studio record. Only consists of covers, so this one will be a bit of a shorter one. I think this album is actually pretty good, especially for only being covers, and they all sound good. I do think it's funny that Weezer covered No Scrubs by TLC. I think that one is wild, and also the risk that they took to cover Billie Jean. Not gonna lie, when I realized that's one of the songs they covered, I was shocked by it and worried about how it would sound, but it does still sound nice. I do prefer the original, however. I think all the covers on here are good choices, and glad to see they covered songs like Stand By Me, Take On Me, Paranoid, and Happy together. Even though almost every fucking band, for some reason, covers Happy together. And it has been absolutely beaten to death that nobody knows the original artist who created Happy together. But however, overall, a solid album, and also a safe album to put out. We now move on to the Weezer Black Album, number 14, released the same year as the Teal Album, 2019. I remember the hype for this album, and I guess Weezer must have been teasing this thing for a bit, because I remember when they were rolling out the Teal Album, fans were saying stuff along the lines of, "Where's the Black Album at?" And fans were talking about how excited they were for it, but in my opinion, I don't think the hype for the Black Album was much deserved. This album really isn't all that bad, but it isn't all that good either. I think the best parts of this album are the first 3 songs, just like a majority of Weezer's discography, and then also the final song closing out the album. The first 3 songs being Can't Knock the Hustle, Zombie Bastards, and High as a Kite. All 3 are pretty good songs, and same with the 4th song on the album, Living in LA. Personally, I would never live in LA, but who am I to judge? I'm just some guy from Iowa. The next 2 songs are bad, but aren't really that good, which Weezer is really good at making. Those being Piece of Cake and I'm Just Being Honest. The worst part of the record would be the next 3 songs progressively getting worse, dipping, and then the lowest point of the album would be Byzantine, being the worst song on the record, but then we are met with what I can say is Weezer's most underrated gem in their entire discography. That being the song California Snow, the final track for the album, which I think it is definitely the best song on the album and the last really good Weezer song to come out for the time being. This song would definitely be in my Weezer greatest hits if I was to hypothetically have a playlist in the description. Overall, the Black Album is pretty good, but nothing special besides its closing track. Now we are back into uncharted territory. Number 15, the album OK Human, released in 2021. And just like Death to False Metal and Hurley, I knew almost nothing about it besides the fact that Weezer recorded this with an orchestra, which is pretty dope in my opinion. This album is loved by a majority of Weezer fans, from what I can tell, and I remember when this album came out, but by the time this album came out, I was already done listening to Weezer, and listening to things more worth my time. But now here we are. Just like Hurley and Death to False Metal, it's time to break my OK Human virginity. Overall, this album isn't bad. I think the orchestra really helps with this album, not gonna lie. Like it allowed this album to be something good. I don't really have an opinion on this album besides that it flows well. It flows really well. And it's better than mid, which is the opposite of how I thought I was going to feel going into this. I didn't really have much of the highest hopes for this. Some key songs I do want to mention, though, are obviously the first 3 songs, which is Weezer's formula to have the first 3 songs be the strongest. Those being all my favorite songs, Alu Gobi, Grapes of Wrath. I have no clue how to fucking pronounce the second song on this record. Gonna be real fucking honest. Some other tracks that are good are Numbers and Bird with a Broken Wing. These ones shine brighter than the others, but they all flow really well together, and I don't think there's necessarily a bad song on this record. I honestly think Weezer was saved with the fact that they used an orchestra on this record. Now we move on to album number 16, Van Weezer, released in 2021. A fun little fact about this album is that it was supposed to release in May of 2020 for its original release date, but then COVID happened, causing the tour they were going on during this rollout to be postponed, which then the band decided to postpone the entire fucking album a whole ass year. And I can tell you right now, there is no way that this album is good enough to make me wait over a year to listen to it. The concept for this record is that Rivers wanted to make an album that would sound similar to Van Halen. And let me tell you, I think Van Halen has some killer instrumentals. So this album better have some killer instrumentals because I know the band is capable of it based off of songs off of Maladroit and Everything Will Be Alright in the End. Prior to this, I only knew the songs End of the Game and Hero, which are both singles for this record. Both singles are the best songs on this record. The instrumentals on this album are actually really good, especially the solos. An example would be the song Beginning of the End, which I think has a banger-ass solo, and I fucking loved it. I remember seeing stuff about this song because it was in the soundtrack for Bill and Ted 3, Face the Music. Bill and Ted being one of my favorite movie series. However, the lyrics and vocal delivery kinda suck and are pretty mid. The guitar for these songs are really fucking good though. Something I found kinda wild was the fact that the song Blue Dreams guitar part is just a rehash of Ozzy Osbourne's song Crazy Train. Which took me back a bit when I heard it. There isn't necessarily one bad song on this album, but I do think the lowest point on this record is the final track, because I don't want an acoustic song on an album that's supposed to resemble Van fucking Halen or showcase more of Rivers' metal influences, but the song was still decent at best. This album's instrumentals are really good, and it shows that Weezer can still cook in that department. But like I said, I think the lyrics and vocals are pretty mid. Now, we are officially at the home stretch. Weezer's last 4 albums. The SZNZ quadrilogy. There is one for each season, with each of them supposed to be having their own vibe/sound. I haven't listened to any of these, so this will be my first time listening to all 4 albums. Let's talk about the first one, SZNZ Spring. Album number 17, released in spring of 2022. This album fucking sucks and is boring. Nothing stood out to me here besides the fact that the first song on this album fucking blows. And then the outro for this album, Angels on Vacation, however, was pretty good. Another highlight I do want to point out is the fact that Rivers says the word lollygag in the final song on this album, which is Wild at Heart. This album sucks due to how boring it is. I was literally spacing out the entire fucking time because of how fucking boring it was. This album is a certified L. Time for album 18, SZNZ Summer. This album was released in the summer of 2022 and is the second part of the SZNZ quadrilogy. SZNZ Summer is much better than Spring. There's 3 songs on this album that stand out compared to the rest in a good way. Those being Records, Blue Like Jazz, and the closing song, Thank You and Good Night. The worst on this record is probably the opener, but as the album went on, it wasn't bad. About half of this record is mid, with the exception of the 3 songs I've mentioned, which were just a step above mid. I really do love the final part of the last song though. I'd say that would be my highlight on this record. I'm glad this one is better than Spring, but in all honesty, this album hovers right above mid. Now we move on to album number 19, the second to last Weezer album on this list. We move on to SZNZ Autumn, part 3. So far, this one is the best out of the 4. The intro song is actually good, unlike the other 2, and the album overall is fun. Tastes Like Pain at first didn't seem like it was going to be good, and then it picked up. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think there's one low point on this record, which is surprising. I think the best songs though are Get Off on the Pain, Can't Dance, Don't Ask Me, and What Happens After You. I really enjoyed What Happens After You the most out of those three. Like I said so far, SZNZ Autumn is the best one out of the four, and it's honestly fun to listen to and catchy, which really surprised me because I didn't think any of the seasons were going to actually be good. And now we move on to the last Weezer album at the time of making this video, SZNZ Winter, released in winter of 2022. Let's see if this one is better than Autumn, making the four progressively get better as they were released, or if it will cause a fall in quality. Let's dive into album number 20. Now that I've listened to it, this album ain't nothing special, and there's a dip in quality compared to Autumn, therefore making Autumn the best SZNZ album. This album isn't mid, I think it just hovers slightly over mid. I think the best songs on this album are I Want a Dog,
What the dog doing?
Dark Enough to See the Stars, and The One That Got Away. I won't really say there's a low point besides the rest of the album just being plain boring and simply nothing special. I'd say this is better than Spring, but at the moment I have no clue which ones are better out of Summer and Winter. All I gotta say right now is thank fucking God I am done listening to all of Weezer's albums, but at the same time I am glad that I took the time to listen to them, because now I can piss off an entire fucking fan base with my opinions, and also found a few bangers. There are some final thoughts I want to talk about though before moving on to the tier list, that being a weird coincidence I noticed in their discography, that being how, in my opinion, Weezer released a dog shit album, took a 4 to 5 year break, and then released 2 banger albums back to back. The 2 examples of this are how Weezer dropped Pinkerton, dipped for 5 years, and released Green and Maladroit back to back. And then again, they dropped Hurley, which is definitely better than Pinkerton, but still is kind of bad. Which still is kind of a bad album. And then took a 4-year break to put out what I think is their best album and a good contender for number 1 spot, Back to Back. Another thing I want to bring up is that I'm still shocked by how jacked up and the Bad Boys and the song Bad Boys, the theme song for Cops, have a similar piano part. I'm still not over that comparison. I will never get the time back that I spent listening to these records, but hey, I can tell you confidently which albums suck and which albums are good now. If you're still watching this video, thank you for listening to my spiel about Weezer, and now let's move on to the tier list portion. Is up, Chatter fam. We are now on to the tier list portion, and now I am going to be ranking all of them. So let's put that'll go there. 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 Oh, I should probably make a... No, oh, there we go. Oh, fuck. Yeah, there we go. Let's change the color. I don't really like the color for that. We're going in all raw, no rubber. Alright. Oh, what the fuck? There we go, that's better. That's better. Alright, let's, oh, that's definitely better than that. No, that'll go there. That'll go there. That'll go there. That'll also go there, but that needs to be at the way bottom. I'll just put that there. That'll go above that, you know. The Red Album, yeah, we'll put it there. Definitely better than Hurley, though. Definitely better than Hurley. That'll go there. That'll go there. I'm gonna move that down. Actually, move that up. Move that up. And then that'll go there. That'll go there. So, this is my Weezer tier list. In order for the Weezer tier list, we have Everything Will Be Alright in the End at the #1 spot. Absolute. Actually, let's do this real quick. At a row above. Yeah. Let's do this. Let's do this. Yeah. Let's move that up. All right. So in the God tier, we have Everything Will Be Alright in the End. And in the S tier, in order, it goes from Maladroit to the White Album. After that, we are now in the A tier, and I have the Weezer Green Album as the first one in A, Pacific Daydream, and then the Teal Album. In B tier, in order, I have the Blue Album, Van Weezer, OK Human, and then Make Believe. C tier, I have the Black Album, and then Ratitude right after it. And then in D tier, I have the Weezer Red Album, Hurley, and Death to False Metal. And then we have the final tier, fucking dog shit, that has Spring, and then the absolute worst of the worst for Weezer, Pinkerton. If anybody tries to tell me that Pinkerton is a good fucking album, their opinion is not fucking valid, and they need to rethink their fucking taste, because Pinkerton is not a good album. The band itself doesn't even like Pinkerton. Why do you think it's good if the band itself doesn't like it? It is actually dog shit. All it is just noise, and it's not even good noise, because I like bands like Slipknot, which are just noise. But Pinkerton is just noise, but it's terrible. It's fucking annoying. It's dog shit. I don't get how anybody likes Pinkerton. If you've made it to this portion of the video, sorry for my little rant there, but if you've made it to the ending of this video, I do have a playlist. I am going to have a playlist in the description, like I've mentioned earlier on in this video. I'm going to have a playlist in the description that has all of my favorite Weezer tracks after going through all of their albums. And I will also be having more videos like this coming soon. One talking about the band Slipknot, which I've previously mentioned in my little rant there. And then I will also be talking about my top 4 favorite bands of all time. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a nice day.
Funny, but not funny, haha. Funny, I'm gonna have a breakdown.